Alright.
Welcome to Immortal Unchained, you bastards. This is first impression video based on 3 or 4 hours into the game. So this is not a review, don't mistake this for a review. I might continue playing this game and do the review after a while, but I'm currently really busy, so all of this is on my free time. Immortal Unchained just released and it's been received with mixed critics from what I've seen mostly. Before anything, I need to commend developers for having balls to try something like this. Sci-fi, gun-based Dark Souls. That's what this game truly is. Immortal Unchained doesn't have financial backing like Dark Souls games, which is obvious in some areas like clunky animations, clippings, no real lip sync. It's one of those things you can just look past it because you know what you're playing. In the beginning of the game, story is nothing special. You have some kind of a prime race. When they were ruling, there was a golden age, everyone was living happily, trade was prospering, there were no wars of any kind. But then evil came, you know, typical evil, what do you expect from evil? And everything went to shit. So now you wake up in your prison cell without knowing how you ended up there or what crimes you committed. Your goal is typical, like in most video games, no pressure job, like saving the world from evil. But this is where the things get interesting. First of all, your character looks badass, I love that. Character creation offers enough choices to make him or her to your own liking. After that, you need to choose a class. Every class has got specific bonuses. They can be switched later on, and you can use bonuses from other classes if you find those items in the game, so you're not really locked in, which is fine. I like how these different classes have different bonuses. For example, you can choose Raider, who is good up close with submachine guns and can get behind an enemy and shoot them in the back thanks to his overall nimbleness. Raider bonus increases critical damage done. On the other hand, you can choose Sniper, or a tanky character focused on melee combat. There are plenty of choices here and I quite like the whole progression system. When you create the character, you wake up in the prison cell and immediately I'm blown away by the atmosphere that the game provides, especially during that early prison section. Dark, eerie music, bodies everywhere, gritty atmosphere. Everything feels so scary and so dire. And then you also see the enemies that you're facing. These undead that were, I think, humans before this. So they are this mix undead organic stuff with bionic upgrades, and they also wield weapons, some of them at least. Unfortunately, later on that atmosphere gets a bit diluted because there are just too many enemies, but from time to time that feeling will be back, depending on the location that you're at. One of my biggest concerns about the game is the fact that there's no enemy variety. At least not in first 3 or 4 hours that I've played the game. Every enemy looks pretty much the same, their only difference is the size and the weapon that they are wielding. That's about it. The only thing that is different were these armored robots that I fought in the second world. I cannot say for further on in the game if there will be more diversity regarding enemies, but so far this is an issue for me. The biggest issue with the game so far is balancing. The game will put you through some really nasty situations where you just won't have enough time to react, where you won't be aware of everything, and it needs to change. Developers are aware of this and they are already implementing patches to address this issue. Now, how much they can fix, I don't know, because it's already part of the game, it's part of the core of the game. So how much they can change, I don't know. If they can just change it a bit, it would be better. For example, you have a segment where you're attacked by only one enemy, which is not a problem. Next segment, you have this huge area and there's a lot of enemies with miniguns standing on the elevated platforms, ready to shoot your face off, while you need to run through the enemies that are on the ground trying to stop you. While the overall level design is quite good and everything is connected as it should be, there's a problem with a lot of narrow corridors where you're going to be targeted by your enemies and you just can't avoid them. So you're stuck going across the bridge and there's a lot of enemies on the other side of the bridge. so you don't really have much choice here except to run forward, which means taking some shots, and those shots will absolutely wreck your health bar. You cannot take much damage in this game. Considering that this is a gun-based game, I would think that developers would include far more open areas and more ways on how to get past the enemies. Not these small narrow bridges or cliff edges or tunnels where it's hard to even get past the enemy without killing them because it's so narrow. It all adds up to sometimes very frustrating encounters where you feel like you are just stuck, that you cannot do much. There's not enough cover, everyone is shooting at you, you're trying to dodge roll everything that's being thrown at you, then there's melee character running at you. It's just not very well balanced. Bosses also don't really offer much variety. I've currently beaten 2 bosses and I've seen other bosses on YouTube. The same strategy applies to almost all of them, you just gotta go behind them and empty the clip into their backs. That's the only way how to defeat all of these bosses. Later on, these bosses will have additional enemies or maybe traps on the surface that if you walk over it will stun you, trap you or something like that. Tactic wise, there's just not much variety on how to deal with these bosses. Let's talk about combat a bit. If we discard the balancing issues, combat is solid, especially gunplay. There are so many guns in this game and it definitely adds a lot of depth. Melee combat on the other hand is not that great, it's just too simplistic and I feel it couldn't be done much better, but this is after all a gun focused game. Your only means of defense is dodging, be it from crazy berserkers charging at you like there's no tomorrow or just other bastards shooting at you from elevated positions. The only way to avoid all of these things that are coming at you is by dodging. Offensive wise, you have so many options. You can throw a grenade, shoot enemies' limbs off. They will be regenerated over time, but it still makes such a difference when you can shoot enemies' arm off if they are holding a weapon in that hand. Or you can play with stamina of enemies by shooting them in their legs. That way their stamina gets depleted quite fast and their stability goes out of whack. Same thing applies to you. So the whole stamina or stability system is really nice, and I absolutely love dismemberments. It might look clunky at times, but trust me, the game is really solid in combat department. Immortal Unchained is one of those games that when you look someone else play, it might seem clunky, not overly impressive, maybe even bad at times. When you pick up a controller and start playing for yourself, I can guarantee you will be hooked. The summary of my first impression for Immortal Unchained would be that the game's got its flaws, big and small, but it's got a lot of good things too. And the best thing about the game is that you will want to play this game through and through, because of the good character progression system, decent story, not brilliant but decent. There's a lot of subtle lore scattered throughout the world, same like in Dark Souls, and the worlds themselves are nicely done, they are interesting, they all have a backstory, at least the ones that I visited so far. Good thing is that these worlds look nothing alike, so there's a definite scenery change. Add to all of this solid combat, lots of weapons, and you have on your hands really solid game. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.